Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The UN is looking for a new Secretary General. The job spec, head of the United Nations Secretariat and the spokesperson and leader of the UN. Budget, $5.4 billion and rising. Term can be indefinite, but usually restricted to 2 5-year stints. Remit, the world. Diplomatic and troubleshooting skills essential. Since its inception in 1945, 9 people have held the job, all men. This time at least 1 woman wants it. Helen Clark, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, has just announced she'll be running. I spoke to her from New York an hour ago. I started by asking her about the role the UN plays in global crises and why they're often criticised for not reacting fast enough.
Well, let's take the Syria crisis, where from the outset the Secretary-General did appoint a special envoy, Kofi Annan. Kofi Annan was followed by Mr Brahimi, then followed by Staffan de Mistura. Mr de Mistura has people talking as we speak in recess at the moment, but the Syria talks are underway. And for the sake of the people of Syria, I very much hope they will succeed, because everything else we do is like a band-aid as long as there isn't peace in Syria.
Well, let's take the Ebola crisis then. The WHO was heavily criticised for the way it failed to handle the Ebola crisis.
It was. Again, the Secretary-General stepped in with a special mission to mobilise international support for the 3 countries. My own organisation, UNDP, was very active then in that response, and it has led for the UN on the recovery process.
But at the very top, looking at the Security Council and the 5 permanent members, which looks now just like a gentleman's club of old powers, not new emerging powers, and that Security Council has a veto. Do you think the makeup of the Security Council is wrong?
Well, the Security Council reflects the geopolitical realities of 1945. I've been a Prime Minister, I've been engaged for my country on issues of Security Council reform in the past. I would like the Security Council to look more like the 21st century world we live in today.
And what countries would be in that?
Well, there's a group of 4 which have banded together for many years, Germany, Japan, India and Brazil as outstanding obvious candidates. Then there has also been the proposal alongside that for permanent membership for 2 places for Africa and other suggestions as well. But certainly, as constructed in 1945, before many of today's member states in the UN were independent nations, the Security Council doesn't reflect the geopolitics we see today.
And as you say, the world looks very different from it did in 1945. What is the justification for the United Kingdom for having a permanent place in the Security Council?
Well, this is 1945. We're coming out of the disaster of World War II. The United Kingdom was a great power, actually is still a very, very significant power. But the member states are going to have to sort this out. Whatever technical, expert, secretariat support the UN organisation can give, it will. But in the end, it's a member state decision as to how they want the Security Council to look.
And of course, looking at the United Nations since 1945, there have been 9 Secretary Generals, none of whom has been a woman. Would the fact of being a woman and a former leader of a country put you in a different kind of footing, do you think?
I'm not campaigning as a woman candidate, I'm campaigning as the best person for the job. But obviously I'm a woman, and as someone who has been a long-time advocate of women's empowerment and gender equality, I like to see women get to the top of whatever field of life.
If there's one thing that the UN should be achieving now that it has not achieved, what is it?
Developing the skills required for the new kinds of conflicts. The conflicts we're seeing are by and large not those that were envisaged when the Charter was written, when the idea was to banish war between nations. By and large, with few exceptions, that has been achieved. But we see so much conflict, the civil wars, the disparate non-state actors in these conflicts, the violent extremists. This calls for different approaches, and for the UN, with its strong development, humanitarian, human rights, political and peace building and peacekeeping arms, we need to play as one team, not in lots of different silos, to make a real difference.
Helen Clark, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
my bed.